Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Daniel Cross-Turner, Head of Programming and Outreach for the Georgetown County Library System. Welcome to Digibridge 2.0, a series of 12 humanities lectures. We're going all around Georgetown County and finding local experts to talk to us about the deep, diverse history of our area and region. And in fact, today we're going a little bit outside of Georgetown County to our wonderful neighbor up in Horry County with Chief Hatcher today. But all presentations are free and open to the public. And in March, we started out at our brand new Southern Georgetown Library branch on Powell Road, had 4 presentations there. We just finished up in April with 4 presentations at our Carvers Bay Library in Hemingway, and now we're right here in Andrews, South Carolina, on North Morgan Avenue at our Andrews Library branch. And we want to say thank you to Rose Lewis, our branch manager here, and her staff for welcoming us. So we're thrilled to be here this week and for the next 3 weeks, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. So please come on out and join us. If you miss Digibridge 2.0 in person, never fear, all 12 presentations will also be made available for viewing afterwards at the Georgetown County Library YouTube page. The Digibridge 2.0 series is supported with a growth grant from South Carolina Humanities with funding provided by the National Endowment for the Humanities. South Carolina Humanities is a not-for-profit organization inspiring, engaging, and enriching South Carolinians with programs on literature, history, culture, and heritage. And we'll hear a lot about heritage today with our guests. We're delighted and honored to have Chief Harold Buster Hatcher, the Waccamaw Indian Council Chief, talking about his personal and cultural heritage. And Chief Hatcher has been the Council Chief of the Waccamaw Indian People since the tribe's founding in 1992. The tribal grounds are located up the road a piece, up in Aner, and Hatcher strives to retain the Waccamaw Indian people's distinct history, arts, and crafts while embracing the rich heritage afforded by their ancestors. He hopes to secure federal recognition for the tribe soon. So please welcome Chief Hatcher.
Thank you. Is it okay with everybody if I just remain seated?
Yes. That's fine with me.
I've got a terrible back. It's amazing to me that anybody really cares what I think. Matter of fact, when I'm talking to my wife, I can see her ears turn pale as she turns them off. That's the way it goes. But as Mr. Dan said, I've been running the tribe now since '92, I guess. Been a while. But first, I need to say to everybody that I'm not here to complain about my life. If I could go back and change things in my life, I wouldn't do it. I'm happy with it the way it is, although I do have some good memories and I got some bad memories. Mm-hmm. So what I say today is not to be taken as a complaint, because it's not a complaint. I am today what my past life made me to be. Prior to 1776, everywhere you looked all around this area was houses, farms, palisades in some cases. Indian people lived here since prehistory until today. Then came along the European people came in 1776. Everybody, you know that's when the Revolutionary Wars fought, and they became a new governor in the state of South Carolina. I think his name was Moore, but I'm not absolutely positive on it. During that time, there were 29 different Indian tribes in South Carolina. Now, what does a tribe mean? A tribe is actually a family. we generally kin to everybody else in the tribe at some distance. But we speak a common language. We have a common culture. Now, there were other tribes. We are based on Lakota, which some people call Siouan. I don't like the word Siouan because Siouan is a Dutch corruption of the French word for snake. So I don't use it. The reason for that, as I understand, is because the white folks back in those days like to stand up and shoot at each other. They get all in one line on this side and one line on that side, and everybody shoots at each other. Well, that don't make a lot of sense to me even today. But back in those days, if you didn't do that, then you were considered snakes or sneaky. And we didn't do that. So they ended up calling us snake-like people. At any rate, the Waccamaw people were here even in those times. And according to British public records, the Waccamaw were considered to be among a confederacy of very wild and savage people. Some of them still are. So we were here. Anyway, there were houses my great-great-great-grandfather had. We didn't call it a house like you call it today, but we call it a sook. It was made like the Cherokees, I believe, call it a wickiup. And it was made of bark, sometimes made of animal skin. But we had villages. We had gardens. We domesticated deer. Had deer meat, or not deer meat, but doe's milk. We made it into cheese. But right after the Revolutionary War, the new governor of South Carolina just gave land to people, called governor's grants. People living on that property when he gave it away. And these people had lived there, had raised their kids there, had farmed there, had done whatever. And all of a sudden, someone comes up to them and tells them, this is my property now, and you need to leave. That didn't sit well with some of them. I don't think it would sit well with me either if somebody came to my house and told me, your house is not my house. So at any rate, we had some problems with that, and people refused to leave in a lot of cases. And they went back to the authorities and they authorized people to use deadly force if necessary to get the people off that property. Eventually, the Indians settled in little different pockets all over the state because back in those days, some of you ladies are surely not old. I don't see anybody in here probably old enough to remember the years of segregation. There was even a law here in South Carolina called miscegenation. You could not marry outside of your race. You know what's really amazing about that too is when Governor Hodges ran for the governorship of South Carolina in the year 2000, that was on the constitution of this state to not allow anybody to marry outside of their race. Did you know that 48% of the people that lived in this state voted to keep it against the law? Isn't that amazing? 48% of the people in this state would just make you stay in your place, basically.
That goes against Loving.
Sorry?
So that goes against Loving. That goes against the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but that was the case. I had an uncle that went to prison for a year for marrying a white woman. Fined him $500 and put him in prison for a year. They can put her in prison. I guess she would be just as guilty as he was, but she was white, so maybe they gave him a little bit of an advantage. I don't know. And again, I'm not complaining. At any rate, about 1813, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, a fellow named John Demery, yeah, that wasn't his name at the time, but we had to take Christian names in the early days because Shonky Shee Yonky didn't fit well on a deed. And nobody knew how to spell it. So at any rate, they took Christian names. And my great-great-great-grandfather, John Demery, and some of his friends pooled their money and they purchased 300 acres of land from a fellow named William Lewis. Might be some kin of you. You're Lewis too.
Yeah, actually.
And,
NRE.
Yeah. Well, right outside of Vainer. Now, Mr. Lewis got the land from a Josiah Lewis, who got it from a land grant.
Differently.
I don't know how much they paid. We've still got a copy of the old deed where my grandfather bought the land back. This is the same land they lived on that was taken from them, and they purchased it back. But think about that. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is reality. This is true. William Lewis purchased the land from Josiah Lewis on March 10th of 1806. That was part of a 1,000-acre tract that was given to him by the governor. We lived on it, and we raised our kids on it, and we raised gardens and all that on it. But we never had a courthouse to file a deed in until the European people got here. So although they would by all means own the property, it never was recorded on a deed until after the Revolutionary War. The Demery settlement, as I said earlier, a lot of the laws around here kept people in little pockets. In the Demery settlement, folks, other Indians would gather to come and live in that same area because there were different laws applied to different people. Like, for example, the Demery settlement, the people that were known to be Indian, they ended up having their own special school. We call it the Demery School. The actual name of it was the Pine Level School. They had their own church. People kept burning the church down. They didn't like them folks going to church there. But the Demery settlement grew and grew and grew until it was well known. It's well documented in the newspapers and that. And it's well known as a group of Demerys, Turners, Cooks, Hatchers. He's a Turner. But he's from West Virginia. He said he's one of his borrowers. But he may be one of us too.
I'll join.
I'm sorry?
I'll join up.
All right, great.
You'll have me.
So they had their own little school. It's called, like I said, the Pine Level School, and the kids would go. It was not well maintained. It had a roof leak, and they wouldn't fix it. I guess Overy County was responsible for trying to repair the schools and pay the teachers and that. They had a white person that was teaching the class. Series of white people. There was never an Indian teacher there. I don't know why that was, but I guess because the Indians were lacked in education as much as the white folks did. But they did maintain it, and it developed a bad roof leak. There was no air conditioning, no heating and all that in the wintertime, and the kids were kind of uncomfortable there. My dad went there. My aunts and uncles on my dad's side went there. But my dad, I think, stopped school in about 6th grade. But at any rate, around about 1926, they decided to do away with the Indian school and to combine the black and the Indian school together. And they would keep the white school white. But for whatever reason, the Demerys, Hatchers, Turners, and Cooks said they're not going to go into a black school. So they took their kids and took them to the local white school. And this is in the newspaper, you can read about it if you want. And the white parents of the teachers, or the kids that went to that school, came to the school and beat the kids around the wall. Wasn't going to have them in the school with them. So my granddaddy, a fellow named Vanderhatcher, sued Overy County demanding the proper school facility to be built for his kids. And I think the newspapers say, and like kind, which I guess he meant Indian people. And nobody ever did that. Nobody ever built a school for them, but they sent a learned group of people out to look at each child individually and see if they would go to a black school or a white school. I had one aunt go into the white school and her brother go into the black school. Now, I don't know how they were treated while they were in school, but after that 1926 severance of the Indian schools, there were no Indian schools left in the area. So about 1958, I turned 6. And I went to school. We lived in Myrtle Beach at the time, and I went to Myrtle Beach Elementary School, somewhere close to 10th Avenue, Myrtle Beach. We lived on 10th Avenue, which was the black communities. we lived in black neighborhoods, went to white schools. They didn't know what to do with Indians. They still don't, for that matter. But I guess there was some sort of a law that they followed where they didn't put us into black schools for, I don't know why, but it was a unique situation for us because we were wrong at home because we weren't quite dark enough. We were wrong at school because we weren't quite white enough. So either way we went, you know, we were wrong. Anyway, when I turned 6, I think it is, I went to the first grade at Myrtle Beach Elementary School. And if you could remember, I know you probably don't remember, but back in those days, they had, if you went into a restaurant, they would have a white water fountain and a black water fountain, and a white bathroom and a black bathroom. Now, when you go to a white school, there's only one water fountain. Everybody's white in that school, except me, of course. And if I went to that water fountain to drink, there was a fight. I was not supposed to drink from that water fountain. And at the time, I really didn't know whether it's bad, wrong, or indifferent. I just didn't know. It's just the way things were. They segregated us inside the classrooms too. It's like, there's only one classroom, but they would have the white kids on one side and I'd be sitting over on the side. I don't know why. Nobody ever explained it to me, but it made me feel a little bit unusual. Something like I wasn't fitting into that group or something. But most of the kids that I knew, I got along with pretty well. But some of the older kids, the kids that were in the 6th grade and 5th grade, they were, I guess, 13 or 12 or 14 years old when they were in school. They didn't like me, and the teachers didn't like me either. That's the reason they separated us. They kept us in one corner and would tell the other kids that this, if you don't associate with this guy. When I get off the bus in the morning, generally when I get off the bus at the school, there'd be 2 or 3 people there wanting to fight. And I was the type, you know, I didn't know what was going on. When somebody hit me, I hit them back. That was the way it was. So I went through, the Myrtle Beach Sun newspaper did a profile on me back, I don't know how long ago it was. And they did some research, and I remember not going to school very often, but according to what they researched, I went to school 29 days in my first year in school, 29 days. The rest of the time I could, because I didn't want to fight. I'd get off the bus, and you know what's really amazing to me about it too is, I don't complain about anything that happened, but I do wonder why my mother and father never stood up against it. I mean, it was like I was fighting a battle by myself. And when they didn't take a stand against it, and I don't know if they did or not, because they would have talked to the principal and not to me, but I didn't think they did, put it that way. And my father did try to do some things to make us better, because he would buy this stuff. It was called, I don't know what it was, but it was a bleach of some sort that we were supposed to smear on our face that would make us turn white or lighter. It was a bleach of some sort. And I never thought anything bad about it. He was doing it because he loved us and he wanted us to fit better into the community. And when I look back on it now, I don't regret that he did it. It's just that he too, none of us knew what to do. We were just outside, and that was, you know, everybody was trying to break in and be part of the community. I remember cutting school one day, and I was walking from the schoolhouse towards my home. And this car, I guess high school boys, I think it has to be in high school to have a car, to drive a car. There were 4 of them in the car, and when I got up beside me, one of them threw an apple and hit me on the side of the head. And I heard it. It scared me too, because I thought, you know, these guys could come back and beat the daylights out of me. So there was a restaurant there, it's called Dinah's Restaurant. It's on 10th Avenue, Myrtle Beach. The building's still there, but I don't think she'd long been dead. She was a black lady. And I hate to say this, I regret this to this day, but it's a true story. And I was raised in a family that was bigoted too. My dad didn't like white people or black people. And you know what he called black people? He called white people niggas. Anyway, they threw this apple at me, and he called me a nigger. And I'm sorry to say that, but I don't want it to come across as saying the N-word, because I think it needs to be felt the same way it was when I felt it. So they called me a nigger, and they scared me, and I ran into Inez's diner, and I was crying, and had apples splattered all over my face. And she, being a loving person, she asked me, she said, what's wrong? And I told her them boys had called me the word, and that they'd hit me with the apple, and I was afraid it was coming back. She said, well, they're not gonna come in here and bother you. And she said, no matter what they call you, it doesn't change you. And again, y'all have to remember, I was only 6 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And I said, Miss Inez, I'm not a nigger, you a nigger. Isn't that a terrible thing to remember? But I do remember it, and I wish I could take it back, but I can't take it back. And, but it just indicates that all of us have these little things that stick in our brain, and we see things differently, I guess, over the years. But we left, we moved to Conway, and I went to a school called Waccamaw Elementary. And I saw none of that stuff there, no prejudice, no nothing. I got along really well, I got along with the kids there. And I didn't do well at school because I was lazy and not too bright on top of that probably. But I did graduate and went to a school, to what they called junior high. At the time, I think they call it middle school now. But in the classroom, the elementary classroom, it was the same kids every day, but in the junior high, it was different classes every day and different students in the rooms every day. And I went right back into that thing where I was wrong all the time. You know, people wanted to pick on you. But by that time, I knew how to knock somebody out. And that's exactly what I did. If they messed with me, I'd smack them. I did make it through the 2 years, I think it was, there at Conway Middle School, or junior high. Went into high school in the 9th grade. They came up with a demerit system where if you had 10 demerits, you got expelled for 3 days. By the end of the first 6 weeks, I had been expelled twice. And all I needed was 2 more demerits to get expelled a 3rd time. And for fights. But by that time, you know, I was mean. I was looking for a fight. We were standing out in the break area, I guess. We didn't have any money to eat lunch. They didn't have any free lunches back in those days. And if you didn't have money, you just sat out and watched everybody else eat. So we were standing out in the avenue, in the break area, and some guy walks up to me and he puts his hands on my shoulder like that. And now all I need is 2 more demerits, and I'm going home. And he said, didn't you say that you and 3 more niggers cropped all over the back of this year? And when he did, I smacked him. And I smacked him good too. I'm right proud of that, because I could feel his teeth good. And I knew it was there. I said, I might as well turn my stuff in and go home. I took my books to the principal's office and turned it in, and I went home. And I come to how old I was in the 9th grade. But I quit. I left. I went to work at a place called a charcoal plant. We made Ember's charcoal briquettes. Now out of business. I ended up being the plant manager there later on. And I hope it wasn't me to put it out of business. But who knows? Then I joined the Army. And I never saw any bigotry in the Army. Not really. I did work with a sergeant major. He got an Article 15 breaking out of the white water fountain. I didn't see any white water fountains in the Army, but he did, and it always was amazing to me. Here's a sergeant major, black man, excellent man. I mean, I thought the world of him. I thought he could make the moon turn upside down if he wanted to. But he got an Article 15 for drinking out of a white water fountain. So anyway, I went through 20 years in the Army. I got out, and I thought I was going to starve to death because I had a degree in automotive technology, but the only place earn your degree, earn your living doing that degree would be in Detroit, Michigan. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Detroit, but life expectancy in Detroit on the streets is not that long. Lots of folks get killed up there, and I said, I'm not gonna stay up here, so I came back to Conway. And I applied for every job in the youth, because I thought I was gonna starve to death. Applied for like 20 jobs, I got all 20 of them. Everybody was willing to hire me. And I picked, if I would go to work with Burnett Chrysler Plymouth Dodge in Conway. It's not there anymore. And I hope I'm not reading it's not there anymore. I ended up buying a company called SC Incorporated. What I did was I sold abrasives and saws and all that sort of stuff to the federal government. Back in those days, and it might still be, I don't know, they had a thing called the Affirmative Action Program. Mm-hmm. And you could you could outbid your competitor by 10% and still get the bid, dealing with the government. But you had to be registered as a minority-owned company to do it. Now, women could do it. Women could be, could automatically considered a minority. Hispanic people could do it, black people could do it, Orientals could do it. So not even knowing what it's about, I'm an Indian, my paperwork says I'm an Indian. I went to the Small and Minority Business Administration in Columbia, and I tried to register my company as a minority-owned business. They said, we ain't got any Indians in South Carolina. Which kind of surprised me, because I grew up in South Carolina. My mother grew up in South Carolina. My dad grew up in South Carolina. But their official position was that you had to be a Lumbee Indian. You had to go up to North Carolina and join the Lumbee. Well, Lumbees don't want me. I mean, I'm not Lumbee, I'm Waccamaw. So, at any rate, there's a little teeny black lady, too, that I was talking to. She's a nice person. I had nothing against her. I said, have you ever seen a black water fountain? She said, no. I said, you ever seen a white water fountain? She said, no. I said, I have. I've seen them both. And I said, I'm going to register my company as a minority-owned company in South Carolina. And if I have to sue the damn state to do it, that's what I'm going to do. And so I didn't have any money, but I had a typewriter, or a computer, I don't know which one it was now. And somebody gave me a copy of a lawsuit that they had filed on some other issue. And I copied the format and all that sort of stuff, and I typed up my issues on that paper. I didn't even know how to file it, but I had the court, now whatever was on that paper, the court, no, I put it on the same paper I filed. I filed it in the wrong court. But I did sue the state, and the judge, there was a judge that she's now on the Supreme Court, named Kay Hearn, that heard the case. And she said, this should have happened years ago. And she gave me, or the state of North said, you will do this. And so my company was the first company in South Carolina owned by a Native American, listed as a minority-owned company. Now, we knew about the Demery settlement, and my dad and aunts and uncles, etc., grew up on the Demery settlement. But it seemed to me that everybody that had the skin color that I have, and the facial features and such that I have, would have to sue the state separately to register their company as a minority-owned company. So we got together and we chartered the Waccamaw Indian People as a legal entity in South Carolina. I don't know when, but it was
October 1992.
Okay, October 1992. That's why I keep her around. So if I'm lying too, it came from her. And we did that not because we were complaining or tired, but because we felt like our people should have the same rights as everybody else. But Indian people are the only people in this country that have to be recognized. Recognized. Think about that. I got a Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, 3 bullet holes in my belly from service in Vietnam. And I can't bury my mother with the same religious freedoms that you can. See, I don't think that's right. I think people, the day they're born, should have the same rights as everybody else. Unfortunately, that's not the way it is for Indian people. So that's why we're on the drive to become not only recognized, we are recognized in the state of South Carolina. We're the first tribe in South Carolina ever recognized in South Carolina's history. And we've been fighting since then to make it right, or all right, to be Native people. But Native people only number about 0.5% of the voting public. So the politicians don't much care about us. For example, Native people, Native women suffer at rape, murder, and assault at a rate 10 times the national average. 10 times the national average. I care, McMaster don't. I care, Scott don't. Neither does Drea. Our kids drop out of high school at a rate 5 times that of the Caucasians. 5 times. There's something wrong with that. Somebody needs to be looking at this and see why is this happening. It's above my pay level, I admit that. But the governor don't care, because I've written him, talked to him, sat in his lap, did everything I could to try to get him to do something for my people. He just absolutely, he won't even take the call now. It's, he tells contact is Tracy somebody, Trey something. But he won't take the call either. Our kids, our people live at or below the poverty level at a rate 5 times that of the Caucasians. That's not bad against the Caucasians, don't get me wrong, but something's wrong with this. I don't know what to do about it. I've asked the governor for help, I've asked the state legislators for help, and they don't even answer my calls or my letters anymore. So, anyway, we're on a quest to become federally recognized. If we could become federally recognized, we would become basically a country inside this state. And it's true that we would be able to do gaming, which a lot of folks around here don't approve of. Personally, I think that the preachers can worry about their souls. I'll worry about the education and all that kind of stuff. So that's the main reason they claim that they are opposing. But there's, talking about recognition, there are 600 sets of human remains right now in museums in South Carolina, human remains. My people. My great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers, whatever, have been there since the 20s, and I can't get them back to burial. And I don't know, but I believe that if it was black people or white people, they'd already be back in the ground. Because the black people and the white people can turn them in office and take them out of office. But we can't, so they don't care. Anyway, like I say, I didn't come here to complain, and I know I'm supposed to be limited to about 30 minutes, so I'm gonna shut up. And if you got questions, I'll be happy to take them. If I don't know the answer, I'll make it up. So do you have questions for me?
Well, I don't have any specific questions, other than to ask. First of all, my name is Denisha McCleary. I'm the EEO Program Manager, the Equal Employment Opportunity Program Manager for Ralph H. Johnson VA Medical Center. Another one of our employees is here. I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Jared Weaver. I'm EEO Diversity Committee, Asian Pacific.
So we wanted to be here today because we believe that learning more about Native American culture and causes is very important. I also work on special emphasis programs at our facility. We would love to invite you to participate in some manner so that you can come and tell your story to our employees. And also, I'm hoping that I can get your contact information afterwards so that I can work with you on employment initiatives, because I target special populations of people to promote jobs within the federal government, specifically at the VA. And Native Americans are one of the populations of people that is severely underrepresented. I know we have a smaller number of Native American people in this state than people, want to. So I know that we don't have like a vast number, but I do know that we have a significant number of people who probably would be interested in finding ways to work with the federal government or, employment opportunities. Doesn't have to be medical. We have a lot of administrative and support roles at our facility, and so to the extent we can talk about how we can promote those opportunities to your tribe, I would love to work with you in the future.
I'd love to work with you as well.
Thank you.
I don't know if you got one of my cards. No, I got a pen.
Okay.
If you make sure she gets one, I appreciate it.
And in my personal capacity, I'm just gonna say it. So I'm an attorney. I'm licensed in Georgia, but I just passed the South Carolina bar. And,
Congratulations.
thank you. And one of my passions is, of course, working for equal justice. And so I would love to also talk to you offline about your efforts to become federally recognized. And if there's anything I can do, volunteer work or any of that kind of stuff, I'd love to do that as well.
Well, you'll be a blessing.
Thank you.
Well, let me, I don't, of all the casinos that's owned in this country, there's only a few owned by Indians. But we do get tagged with the gambling thing. Now, I'm not gonna tell you, if we got federally recognized, I'd probably open the biggest casino there was. I have to say that kind of under my breath, but my job is to worry about my people,
Exactly.
to get them educated, to get them healthy. And if we had the land that my grandfathers had, we'd be wealthy. But that was taken, it never paid for. The labor of the black people, taken, never paid for. People amassed tons of money, that money's still here. The Burris's, the Chapins, some of the Lewises, and I don't regret that to those people, I really don't. But I believe that it's like, what do you call it, reparations for the late years of slavery. Now, this is the way my mind works, and I've got nothing to back it up, but I believe that if you amassed a ton of money from working people without paying them, on lands you took without paying for, you at least owe them people something. It's not the taxpayer, but the people that got it. They should at least be educating our kids. I just believe that. But that, like I said, that money's still here. It's called old money now.
Yeah.
But these folks put themselves in a position like they're a little bit above you. I got it. You want it. You ain't getting it. Pretty much. And the general populace in South Carolina falls right in line with them because they don't know. They don't look at it the way that I look at it. If they educated my children, and I'm not saying taxpayers should, but if you got $50 billion that you earned in slavery on lands you didn't pay for, why wouldn't you be obligated to educate the kids? I don't get it. I'll never make it happen. And if what would happen, in my beliefs, is that the government would, the rich folks would have a way to make the government do it. It'd be the taxpayer back paying the balance, not them. And I think that might be wrong. But I would definitely love to work with you, and to sit and talk with you. What do you think, for example, about me having to bury my mother in a religion different than what I have?
I think it's fundamentally unfair. I think it violates, I think it goes against natural law, of course, but I also think it violates the principles that we say that this nation was founded on. So it's something that I find disgraceful and distasteful, and this is the first time that I have heard this as well. So I think that it's something that more people should be educated on.
Well, in our lore, most of my people are Christian people. I'm not, but in our lore, we revere an eagle's feather
Yes.
because the eagles take prayers to a cantata, great mystery. When he answers a prayer, he puts it on the back of an eagle who takes it back to earth. And when that eagle molts a feather, that's an answer to a prayer. So it knows the way back to God. And we take that feather, we put it where our deceased to accompany them back to God. I can't do that because you have to be a federal Indian to have an eagle's feather. Now, to me, I don't see where religion has any damn thing to do with your race. Any rate, I'm gonna get off the side here. She told me not to do it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I wrote Tim Scott several times when my mother was on her deathbed, and I asked him, I told him, I said, this is not right. I've got bullet holes from serving this country. I should be able to bury my mother the way our tradition says. The damn government ought not be in charge of who goes to heaven and who don't. So at any rate, he didn't ignore every letter I wrote him. So I get mad at him. She's a Gulf War vet. She went to Charleston to get an award for being a Gulf War vet. And I went with her. And Tim Scott was there. He was giving out the plaques or whatever. And he had a lot of folks that gathered up to kiss his tail and all that, but I wasn't one of them going to kiss his tail. And I'm pretty outspoken. So I get in line. And when I finally get up there and I reach out and shake his hand, I said, I didn't come to get your ass. I said, I don't like you. You're coming at me in the wrong way to get me to help you. I said, I'm not asking you for help. I asked you for help 2 years ago. Didn't get it. Didn't even get an answer. I said, so, but I said, what you're telling me is that if you don't like me, you're not going to help me. That ain't what I said. I said, that's exactly what you said. Anyway, we stood there and we talked a few minutes and it got louder and louder and louder. The cops started gathering around. They thought I was going to knock him out. And I would really have loved to knock him out. But I didn't. Susan come up and dragged me off. You got to leave. The cops are gathering around. I said, I still got something else I got to say to him. So I break loose the curtain back. So, but it was, to me, it was like, that's my mother we talked about.
That's right.
If they could just empathize sometimes with the hurt that people are experiencing, it would make a difference, I think, in the way this country would run and the people that run it. Anyway, I'll have to kiss his tail before it's over with, because now he's a senator. He's a powerful senator. I'm looking for a federal recognition, and he can stop it. And I'm sure he remembers me. So I got to blow in his ear, nibble on his earlobe, and all that kind of stuff at some point. It's not, I don't think it's right either. I don't think any talk should be recognized for anything. Our artist, there's a public law 101644 that says that you cannot advertise for sell, or offer for sale any craft that's Native American craft unless you're recognized. Think about that. You ever heard of any artist being told how they can do their art? It's wrong. I don't know why it seems to be the way it is. I wrote to Obama when he was president 21 times. Never got an answer. Huh? Yeah, in South Carolina, we've been on the forefront of every law for Indians in the state. I'm the chairman of the South Carolina Indian Affairs Commission. I'm also the chairman of the South Carolina Indian Development Council. I got more stuff to do than I got time to do. And more stuff to do than I got brains to do too, for that matter. We wanted, in South Carolina, the law said to perform a marriage ceremony, you had to be a minister of the gospel. That's certain separation of church and state, right? Minister of the gospel. Select Jewish rabbis. I don't know how they selected them, but you had to be selected somehow to do it. And notaries public could do a marriage ceremony. I said, this is not right. Indian chiefs and Indian spiritualists have been doing marriage ceremonies for years, for centuries. It's not right to bar us from this. So we started poking the governor and everybody else about, I went to talk to the Speaker of the House, I forgot his name. He said, well, just get you a notary public. I said, I ain't doing it. I said, the damn law wrong, you're going to change it. And it did change. Matter of fact, when Governor Sanford signed the bill into law, she and I were standing right beside him. He said, I hear that Buster and Susan going to be the first one married under this. Now, we were the first people married by a traditional Indian ceremony in the state of South Carolina history.
Congratulations.
And now it happens all the time. I do wedding ceremonies all the time. You don't bypass it. You don't say, well, I just give you a ticket to do this. You got to bulldoze through the problem. You got to solve the problem. Okay. So we've been at the forefront. I didn't say me. I said we. state recognition is in the state. You can vote now as an American Indian where you couldn't before. You can do marriage ceremonies. What's really kind of amazing to me though is the state museum, and we're working on that now. There's 9 state recognized tribes in South Carolina now. There was 26 tribes in early history. 9 state recognized tribes. To become a state recognized tribe, you've got to prove at least 100 years of separate community. 100 years, that's a long time. That's almost as old as I am. So, 100 years of separate community, 100 years of tribal control, a tribal community, and you got to show at least 100 people that are kin to that tribe. We did all that, and we became state recognized. Become federally recognized, it's different. We helped bring that in to the state recognition. I did that not because I believed the recognition, but because I wanted my people to have the same privileges everybody else had.
Yes.
But we've done that. We've got that point, but the State Museum does not list a single state recognized tribe in its museum. It says Catawba, but at the time Catawba was not state recognized. It's federal.
Mm-hmm.
It listed the Yamasee, who are extinct almost, and the Cherokee, who are external to South Carolina. They live in North Carolina, most of them. There's a lot of Cherokees in South Carolina too, but not state recognized tribes. I mean federal recognized tribes. They listed the federal tribes, but not state. But this is not the feds. This is the state, and the state ought to acknowledge its own people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to become a federal tribe, we have to prove an unbroken line of genealogical, I said that wrong, a genealogical unbroken line to a non-Waccamaw at first historic times. Now, we don't know what first historic times means, but the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, has construed it to mean the first time that your tribe is mentioned in the history book. So that would put us about 1689, somewhere in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We didn't write, we didn't have birth certificates, we didn't have death certificates, we didn't have minutes of meetings, we didn't have any of that stuff. So how do we go back now when all the history, actually written history, began in 1760 or 1777 or in that area, and show an unbroken line of genealogy to an non-Waccamaw at 1689? It's impossible to do. Mm-hmm. But you know what really is funny about it? They know damn well it's impossible to do. Mm-hmm. That's not a surprise to these people. Mm-hmm. They're doing this on purpose. Pardon my language. Matter of fact, they wrote an article about me in the Charleston paper. They talked about how bad I cussed.
You ain't the only one, so you good.
But this is, it's clear to me, it's very, very clear to me that this is a plan. Keep you down, keep, anyway, I've been petitioning the Congress, the Senate. If anybody knows who its Indians are, it should be the state.
Right.
If I convinced and proved to the state that we are the remnants of the Waccamaw, which I did, the feds ought to buy it. And that should get us past that criteria. And we should end up federal. But we'll have the other political stuff to fight. They don't want a gambling casino. They don't want, well, we would be able to sell tax-free cigarettes, tax-free gasoline, all that stuff on our reservation. But I'm not stupid enough to think that we have to support the state too. I mean, it doesn't make sense for them to maintain the roads that lead to the reservation. I mean, not help them. I'll give you a quick instance about the Catawbas. Everybody knows the Catawbas, right? That's the federal recognized tribe in South Carolina. Very, very good people. I get along well with the chief. We talk all the time, that kind of stuff. But they became federal because by a lawsuit. They sued the state for return of hundreds, I might even be thousands of acres of land that the state had absorbed when they derecognized them when the Indian Reorganization Act back in the late 1800s or early 1900s. So they never got the what was promised them by the state, so they sued the state, get what it was they promised, or get their federal recognition back. So the judge, in making this, I guess you call it negotiating, mediating, whatever, they offered them federal recognition back, $50 million, 25 from the state, 25 from the feds, and they could do 2 high-stakes bingos anywhere they wanted to, which they would not be allowed to do a casino game, which they signed off on. But once you become federally recognized, you're no longer part of the state. You're not part of the county. So when they did that, the state didn't have to maintain their highways anymore. The state didn't have to educate their kids anymore. Just all kinds of pitfalls you can fall into when you go from state to federal. So if you go up on Catawba now, you see bad roads. The counties are suing the tribe now to make them pay for the times they educated their kids. We need attorneys to figure it out before we step in that hole. So, but by that time, we'll have money to pay. Matter of fact, if we did a survey, or I didn't do a survey, but the people came in from Austria and did a survey at where the amphitheater is, they're on 501 now. They said if we had a 1,600 gambling casino there in that property, we could earn about $400 million a year. I could pay you pretty good for that. I could buy a new car.
And coincidentally, I'm also a military veteran, retired Army JAG, and he's also a
Yeah,
Army veteran.
I knew he was. You Army?
Yes, retired Army JAG, an Iraq veteran, and Bronze Star
Bless your heart.
recipient.
Bless your heart. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And how long did you stay in?
I retired from the military.
I did too. Yeah, that was the best decision I ever made. Back in those days, when I went in the Army, you didn't even have to have a high school education.
Right.
But you do now. But I tell you what, I never saw any of that prejudice crap in the military. Did you?
Well, when we saw it, we quickly eradicated it. So.
Did you see a lot of sexual harassment?
I wouldn't say a lot. I was actually a program manager when they implemented the sexual harassment, assault and response program. So I was assigned to the U.S. Army Legal Services Agency and litigating cases in federal court for the Army. And I was the program manager for the sexual assault program when it was implemented some years ago for that agency. I did not see a lot of sexual harassment. I didn't personally, but I have seen reports.
I never, I always thought it was kind of strange, because when I was a warrant officer, and, I wasn't a chopper driver, I was a regal wearing warrant officer. I shouldn't say that, because all of the chopper drivers, they got more guts than I got. I wouldn't want to be in the air flying over somebody who's shooting at me. But I had ladies that worked in the maintenance section, and if I wanted to talk to him, I could take him in my office and jack him up.
Yeah.
Get jacked up by him, whichever it was. I couldn't do that with a woman. To me, it would seem like I was broadcasting her affairs to other people by having other people in there. I never did. I always did it, but I never thought it was right. I thought that, but it was to protect me, is what it was. But were you a lawyer in the Army?
I was. I started out as a finance officer, and then the Army has a program called the Funded Legal Education Program. So I was selected for that program, and the Army sent me to law school, and I came back.
Did you have to go in and report for pay? You ever had to do that?
In ROTC, we had to report for pay. I was in ROTC, like from 94 to 98, and we were still reporting for pay. In ROTC.
When I came back to Vietnam, I was an E4. And went back to Fort Bragg, back to the 82nd Airborne Division. And I usually get maybe $20 in paycheck at the end of the month. And to walk up, sir, private has to report for pay. And he'd give you $5, and you'd had a line of people down the line here, drop $5 off here to pay for your laundry, drop $5 off more to pay for your haircuts, and by the time you got to the other end, you'd had $2 left. So that's the way it went. But it was, back then, the Army was the Army then. I don't know what it is now, but if I had to go to war, and you were 101, you said?
Well, we were, yeah, 101 first.
So there's something wrong with anybody jumping out of an airplane anyway, right? But if you go to war, that's who you want, is the crazy people behind you.
My husband is the mayor. He's 30 years retired Army infantry colonel.
Wow.
So real crazy.
And he was airborne too.
He wasn't airborne, no, not airborne infantry.
I got a question for you, Chief. You mentioned the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Can you elaborate on when you were transitioning out of the military back into the civilian world? Did you face some of the same obstacles?
Yeah, well, I was a warrant officer, and people called me sir. And matter of fact, it kind of surprised me when I was appointed. I was a direct appointment to a warrant. I walked. One day I was an E6, next day I was a W1, and I walked into the mess hall as a warrant officer, and somebody yelled, "At ease!" And I'm looking all around. Who the hell's in here? But when I got out, as I said, I applied for every job I could think of, and I ended up working for a company called L&M Garage in Conway, South Carolina. And I was pretty good at what I did. I know my way around the car pretty well. But I would have to order parts from time to time and have to wait on the part to come in to put it on. And this guy from Vance Auto or somebody like, "Here's your part, Slick." Kind of irritated me. But other than that, and if you're talking about on the prejudice side, I see that all the time. They did a 60-minute thing on the Pequot Indians of Connecticut. These guys are making money hand over fist. There's only like 20 of them, and they got several. Well, at any rate, they got plenty of money. And they were doing a 60-minute thing on them a long time ago. And my phone number was listed. It's not now, it used to be. And I get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. You didn't ever try to be Indian? That kind of stuff. And somehow people think that when you're Indian, you got money coming in from the government. That's just not true. I mean, I got money coming in from the government because I'm retired Army. And I get some money because I was wounded. But they don't give anything to me because I'm Indian. But yeah, there's a lot of bigoted people out there. As a matter of fact, we went to a conference up in North Carolina. I forgot that guy's name. It's supposed to be a conference. They wanted me to come up, and we did. It's a white guy, and I got nothing. I mean, my mother was part white. I got white blood in me. I just can't prove it. But I got nothing against anybody. But there's 2 different times I've talked to folks that are white or Caucasian that think they're there to teach me something.
Steve.
Yeah, it's like very condescending people. You should have done this, you should have done that. I've been doing this a long time. Maybe not many people don't do any better than I'm doing that. But somebody that's saw an Indian once and now want to tell me how to be an Indian, that kind of irritates me. And it's out there, you can believe that. So yeah, I've seen some of the unwinding of the military. But again, I wouldn't change anything in my life if I had the opportunity to.
Amen.
Now my wife would, she'd make me better looking. She wakes up in the morning, looks at me and starts to cry. Now she's had cataracts removed, so I don't know what's gonna happen now. Any other things I can answer for you?
Given you talked about all the struggles that you've been through personally, and that your people have been through in the state, are you hopeful for the future, or is it a measured hope for you have come a long way, you've done a lot of good, is it, do you feel like it's moving forward?
Right now, Waccamaw is in the best position I've ever seen it to be in. I don't think it's because of me necessarily, except all through the years, we've always been part of the community. We've never tried to shun the community. We've been taking part. As a matter of fact, we gave over like $200,000 to people to finish high school and all that from our bingo hall. So we got a good reputation. I think we have to keep a good reputation and move very quickly. Move it all in South Carolina. The Central Coastal Carolina College just did a museum thing on us. And that's won a national award now. People are knowing who we are, which I think is important, because if they don't know who you are, you're just a bug under a log as far as anybody's concerned. I've been really, really blessed to have these PhDs that are interested in helping us and that I get along with well. Matter of fact, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I met the ambassador, one of the deputy ambassadors from Canada, and I met the director of a movie called Indian Horse. If you've never seen that, you ought to watch it. It's a very, very good movie. The director is now a friend of mine. We correspond now by email and such. And he's interested in doing more to educate people, and maybe doing a movie about Waccamaw or something. The guy from Canada, very, very nice guy. I got his cell phone number and all that. See, one of my problems is, as I said, I wrote President Obama 21 times and never got an answer. And I don't think he ever got the letters, to be honest with you. I think he's got screeners out there. And you got to glow in the dark or something, or have money. I think money makes a lot of difference. And I don't. I have money. But he said, I told him, I said, if I write a letter to President Biden, I've written him twice now. I met him once. I met him when he was stumping there in Anchor. And that's kind of an interesting story too, if you want to hear it. I'm fairly well known in Overy County. But I'm not a Democrat, not a Republican, I'm not a member of the political party. But we went to hear Biden when he was talking there, Biden and Pete Buttigieg and some others. They all gathered the stump, they call it there in Anchor. And they do these little 5 or 10 minute speeches. Well, when I go up there, you know, she and I are sitting on the thing, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I said, well, I got to go in there and go to the bathroom. So I went to the door. They said, where's your credentials at? I don't have any credentials. And, well, you should have some. We can get you some. All right, give me some credentials. so they go through this maneuver thing here, and all of a sudden I end up with a badge put on that gets me in anywhere I want to go. I had taken copies of the letters I had written to Obama, and I was going to Biden and asking him why are we being ignored. But Biden did his speech, and he went inside, and I was going to the bathroom. And I got my credentials, so I told her I'm going to go in there and talk to Biden. So they let me right in, because I had my badge. So I cornered him, and I said, I want to tell you something there, Mr. Vice President. I said, Indian people are citizens of this country, too. You damn right they are. He shook my hand, and well, I loaded on. And I gave him copies of those letters, and he said, well, you'll hear from me. I haven't heard from him. That don't mean, I won't, because he might be, But anyway, the letter that I sent to Biden, he probably never read, but if it goes in the envelope for the ambassador of Canada, he'll read it. So I'm going to get that letter in his envelope and get it to him. And then if you don't want to talk to us, then I'll know it. There's no hope. So it's just going really well for Baltimore. Of course, I'm getting to where I can hardly wiggle anymore. Well, she wants me to tell you about our powwow. This is a sales pitch.
Yes, about it. Yes.
We do the biggest powwow in South Carolina. And It runs the first Saturday and the first Sunday of November, the 5th and 6th. I think it costs you $5, $7 all day long. It's, they have food there, everything. You'll see how people used to make fires with sticks and how they brain tan leather, and you'll enjoy it, really enjoy it. And if you contact me ahead, I'll get you a chief. That's won't cost you anything. I'm waccamawchief@gmail.com. Send me an email, waccamawchief. Now, some people try to make me a chef. Waccamaw, H-I-E-S.
We also do a school day 2 days preceding that, for all the schools in the local area. We do have some of Georgetown County schools that come up, elementary and middle schools. But it's on our website, Waccamaw Indians, or Waccamaw.org is our website.
You just type it, Waccamaw,
You'll find us, and we
We're all
also have a
over
Facebook page, Waccamaw Indian People, that we put the information out there. I head up our school day program, and it's $5 a kid to come out there, and we especially catered to them. We teach them a lot of stuff.
We had 1,500 school kids out there one day. I was ready to move to North Carolina. But if you talk about, we've got a cemetery, and just, if you don't mind listening a minute, we got a cemetery in Orangeburg County that was established in 1861, the year of the OK Corral. Some guy, and it's a felony in South Carolina to desecrate a cemetery. Some guy buys a property and bulldozes a cemetery. Can't make anything happen about it. Now, here's what seems to be the problem. If you go to a cemetery today, you've got tombstones and all that. But Indian people didn't have tombstones back in those days. They had cedar posts. And they would mark their graves with a post for the head. And they usually would have a cedar tree in the area, and they usually would put a lot of seashells on the grave. Now, this guy knew it was a cemetery, but it wasn't a tombstone. So he felt like he had the right to bulldoze it. And apparently the damn governor thinks he has the right to, because I pestered him about it. Of course, he don't answer that either. But how can people do things that's a felony and not be prosecuted? I don't get it. Even on our own cemetery, the old Emory Cemetery there in Anchor, we owned the cemetery since the 1800s. I'm not 1800s, 87, since 87, something like that. And a guy just puts a trailer and a water pump and a septic tank on the cemetery. And there ain't nothing we could do about it. I don't get it. I called the people that issued the septic tank permit. I said, why are you giving us people a septic tank permit on our property? I don't check to see whose property it is. I just issue a septic tank permit. He said, you can sue him. I said, hell, I'm gonna sue you. You the one that got it done. But you can't. It just don't make sense. It's like there's two different sets of laws.
So are you saying that these are not recorded deeds that you have?
Yeah, we're recording.
So I'm confused.
Me too,
I'm all kinds of confused.
They didn't check a deed.
No, but someone is adversely possessing land that belongs to someone else on a deed?
Well, in the case of the cemetery in Orangeburg, he bought land that had a cemetery on it.
Right, so he owns the land, okay. In the case of the trailer,
In the case of the trailer, the person's property adjoins our property.
okay,
And he claimed it was his property, that we misread his stuff.
okay.
But you don't, it seems to me like a surveyor could go out,
You have to bring a quiet title action.
you had what?
You gotta bring a quiet title action to the court to let them know that there's a dispute about the boundary and have some experts.
We got an attorney, but it ended up that the man had to give us equal amount of land. Of course, the land he gave us was not like the land he had, because it drops off, it's a big hole in the ground is what he gave us. But you know, $1 makes people go blind.
Yeah.
Even preachers sometimes. Hey, personally, I don't like the idea of eating steak and watching other people around and not have anything to eat. But there's a lot of people that do that. They complain about, you know, when I was in school, I didn't have any lunch, and sometimes it's hard to concentrate on math or whatever when your stomach hurts. But these people would just watch that happen, no problem. It's just not me. And I think most of the people feel the way I do. Somebody needs help, you try to help them. But there is a group of, or a level of people that could care less about you, your kids. All right, well, let me shut up if there's another question.
Maybe I missed this in the beginning, but about approximately how many members do you have in your tribe?
Got to answer that in two different directions too.
Okay.
We have about 250 carded members. But in the area where the Denver settlement was, there's probably another 1,000 people that are dark-skinned Native people. But they don't want to be Indian. They want to be white. And they pass themselves off as white. My mother, for example, she was born in 1913. So the Indians weren't allowed to be citizens of this country until 1927, Indian Citizenship Act. My mother was not allowed to vote, was not allowed to own property or own land or whatever. And she thought that if she joined the tribe, that she'd lose her Social Security, basically lose her citizenship. And there's a lot of people out there that still think that way. It's not true, but that's the way they think. We have, our cemetery was vandalized in the early 90s. People broke the tombstones down, took the little cedar posts out, threw them out of the cemetery fence. I don't know why, but Myrtle Beach did a newspaper article about it, said the old Indian cemetery had been vandalized. And some of my aunts, the sister of one of my aunts by marriage, challenged the newspaper and said, that's not Indians, that's white people. She said, I got people buried out there. And they did their due diligence and came back and said, well, it is an Indian cemetery. It's been known to be an Indian cemetery all this time. And we're not changing the story. So she started burying her people outside the fence. She didn't want them buried in the, now she's dark skinned like me, and I asked her one time, how did you get that dark pigment in you? Oh, no, ain't no doctor, but I ain't no damn Indian. So,
Okay.
I was always proud of who I was. And you know, we went to Boot Hill, Tombstone, Arizona. I always wanted to go see where the OK Corral fight had been. And go to Boot Hill, the blacks, Chinese, whites, Indians, everybody's buried on Boot Hill. They don't segregate. Even the hearse that they hauled them up there with, they didn't make any difference. But here in this area, we separate where we live, we separate where we eat. Even different funeral homes.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna contaminate each other or something, I don't know. Yeah, I never knew why I was supposed to hate a Jew. Still don't really know. I got, you know Dr. Leader, the state archaeologist?
I don't.
He's a Jew. I said, why am I supposed to hate you? Because I don't know. If I'm gonna hate you, I don't want to have a reason for it. He said, well, we killed Christ, he said.
Oh.
So, well, I said, I thought that was planned, though. That was all kind of laid out, planned. So why am I hate you for doing what you're supposed to do? Anyway, we could write a strange little area right here. And it gets stranger every day, bro.
Do you by chance have any card holding members who happen to look like me, happen to look black, since there's reportedly a lot of intermixing of Gulf people with Indian tribes?
Well, we intermixed with black people a lot, because that's all we can get along with.
Right.
Yeah, one of our judges has a predominant appearance of a black man.
Okay.
But I don't care about the part that's not Indian, no matter to me what flavor that is.
Right.
If you one of my people, I want you to be protected by my people.
Well, you talked about approximately 1,000 other people who are not card carrying, some of which don't want to identify as Indian, but actually may, by their, by natural heritage be Indian. And I believe that it may be an underrepresented or underreported number of black people who also may fall into that
Yeah, that's
category.
probably true, very true. I don't know, but we got bigots in the tribe too.
Of course.
I had two people, when I appointed the guy that had a predominantly black look, when I appointed him as a judge, I had two people resign from the tribe.
This is the South.
See you later.
Yes.
People look at me and say, well, you don't look Indian. Well, I am.
This is the South.
Nobody ever accused me of being white though. That's true. Yeah, we've got the same bigots in Indian countries you got in black country and as they got in white country. It's an individual thing.
That.
Yeah, that's it.
If you say you're not Christian around here, they think you're an atheist.
Yes.
I'm not an atheist, but I'm just not Christian. I had people want to throw me out of the tribe because I was not Christian, which don't make sense to me either. Yeah,
Okay.
people, she was in a church thing, what's the name of that church?
It's the United Methodist Native American Committee. I'm still on it.
They said, we shouldn't allow her to be here because her husband's an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I believe in the Creator. So, but at any rate, I think it's a hell of a lot better now than it was when we started. I really do. I think we've made a lot of progress in this state. I'm getting old. I'm gonna quit. I was thinking about not even running for election. My position's up for election in November. And I've never had an opposition, so I usually win if I run. But I would like to retire. I'd like to kick back, but I'd like to see some things happen first. And I'm getting old. I'm 73. I'll be 73 this month.
Oh, that's
And the wives or boyfriends are a lot younger than I am, a lot better looking.
All right, well, we'll say with that, that punctuation mark, we'll say thank you so much for all of that, sharing with us and, that history, but deep history here in this area of the Waccamaw people, but, it's living history. You brought it right up to the present moment, and we have some good connections starting off too that'll continue forward, and this will be available on the Georgetown County Library YouTube channel soon. But thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause for Chief.